What we're going to talk about today is short sale basic training, and this is the building blocks for short sale success. Basically, what I'm going to be doing today is going over, really from start to finish, my entire business model. So the first thing is the secrets and the nuts and bolts to at the end of this. I want to make sure at the end of this call that you guys can literally start, run, and continually work on a short sale business all the way through doing the whole process. My business today is almost 100% automated, and contrary to belief, short sales right now is an incredible business. So we're going to kind of look at some of the different businesses out there, why short sales is important. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is really like the old versus the new. I mean, I started short sales back in 2006, 2007, and over the last 5 years, I will tell you that short sales have continually changed over 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Every 3 months, it's like a new game, it's a new deal, it's a new adventure. So it's a lot of fun. So then what I'm going to do is just so you can see some of my business and some of the deals that I've done over the last 30 days. Really, more importantly, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, how I got started, my struggle. I mean, it was a struggle when I got in this business, and I really had literally no options but to make this work. It was almost a do-or-die situation. I'm going to break down what I call my short sale automation system, and when I say automation, I mean I have my system basically running more or less an autopilot. I don't do that much in the day-to-day activity of my business, but I do run it. I try to grow it. I make it work. We're also going to talk about what makes my system totally different. What makes up the components of my business, the big bucks, you know, getting into things and business transformation. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's webinar. So let's talk about the secret nuts and bolts, and really what this is in a nutshell. It's you got to open your mind. You look at the news, you look at the newspaper, you can't believe everything that's going on. I got my neighbors talking that they're broke. I got my friend down the street that's in foreclosure. Literally everywhere you turn, there is absolutely uttermost chaos with everything. But with chaos, I got to tell you that opportunity is literally everywhere. Everywhere you go, right now, 48% of most homeowners that are out there in today's market are literally upside down. And that's just, to me, that's a phenomenal statistic when literally every other home that you walk by while you're on your block is somebody that might potentially be a short sale that you can help and make money at the same time. It literally is a win-win situation, which is what this all is about. And for me, this is the greatest time in history for real estate. And if you guys are out there and you're listening to this presentation, and you guys got to get excited, because right now, like back in the Great Depression in the 20s and 30s, more millionaires at that point in time were made ever in history because a few people decided to open their mind and say, hey, you know what, we're going to do what everyone else is not willing to do and start moving forward. So, but let's start to break this down to the nitty-gritty. So what will make me the most money? So when I started to evaluate my business, I was a broker, and we'll go into my story a little bit, but you know, there are many different investment vehicles to get started. You know, I have friends that do wholesale, you know, and there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with literally every one of these approaches on this page, but I'm going to tell you without a shadow of a doubt, and you're going to agree with me by the time we're done with this presentation, that short sales are by far. Wholesaling, that's fantastic. Make a couple $1,000s a deal. You know, we've done REO buying. We've bought property at REO. They could be just as long, if not longer, than short sales, depending on the situation. And more importantly, unless you have an inside catch with a lot of these REO brokers, you're not going to get the deals. You're going to get the peanuts of things. So lease options are some things people are looking at now. Rent to own, that is very popular. I'm seeing a lot of real estate agents and investors doing a rent to own situation, because you know what? You could get $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 more for a rent to own situation. Get a tenant in there, get them to pay a down payment, and you could make money. So am I selling rent to owns? Yes. So there are other great options. Tax liens, buy, fix, and flips, rehabs. You know, we had Stubby, one of our guys on their True Life team that's going to, we'll talk about at the end of this, that literally talked a lot about rehabbing. That's all he does right now. Free and clear. And finally, I got to tell you my favorite, short sale. So, you know, what was my choice of real estate investment? Obviously, you guys, if you're on this webinar, we're talking short sales. Why short sales? Number one, it's massive profits. I mean, you have massive profits with short sales. And the number one thing that I like about short sales, beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond anything you do, anything you're about, you have complete unparalleled deal control. So if you have a homeowner, you control their paperwork. If you have a property and somebody's going to access that from the bank, you can tell who goes in and who goes out. Literally, you have control of over almost every aspect of the deal, and you can get a short sale approved literally with no money out of your pocket. So the next thing is you could have no money, you don't need a mortgage, and you don't need any credit. So a lot of people, like when I started, I didn't have any money, I didn't have any mortgage. I'm going to tell you what, I had bad credit because I had owned property just like everyone else that was upside down at that time. So best of all, this short sale opportunities is a no-risk situation. So let's talk a little bit about the old way versus the new way. The old way, I mean, when I started short sales back in 2006, 2007, literally we didn't even have to negotiate with a lender. I would call up the lender's foreclosing attorney. My attorney would take my contract. He would hand it to their foreclosing attorney. And then what they would do, they would negotiate a price. They'd agree on it. So the first 1 or 2 deals that I did, we literally didn't even have to negotiate with the bank. And then as things progressed, 2007, 2008, things were absolutely brand new in the short sale market. So loss mitigation departments had no idea what was going on. Everyone had no idea what was going on. Real estate agents were starry-eyed, looked like a deer had hit them. I mean, it literally was a rough time in the beginning for short sales because no one really knew what was going on. Now, everyone is much better at what they do. Short sale is probably just as common as having dinner at night with your folks and your family and everyone else. So it's a crazy time, but things have definitely changed. Is there opportunity there? Is it bigger and better? Yeah, because I'm going to tell you, it's gotten a little bit more difficult. And when I say that, it's not that it's harder to do, it's just that the banks have clamped down and have put down regulations and stipulations in place to check us off. So instead of making the deals very easy and kind of sloppily walking our way through a short sale, which is how I started in the beginning, now we really have to dot our I's and cross our T's. So you know what that's done? That's alleviated a lot of our sloppy competition. But those people that are part of the industry right now that are dotting their I's and crossing their T's are doing fabulous. And we'll get into that and some of the deals I've done here in the last 30 days. And so deals are everywhere. So beyond anything, this is an absolute incredible time to work short sales. So, here's some of the deals that we've closed in my business in the last 30 days. 425 West Broadway. We literally bought this, was an FHA for $134,500. We sold it for $155,000. So right about, wasn't a great profit of $19,000 after closing costs. Probably netted to us somewhere in the ballpark of $15,000. Burton Place, which I'm going to go over after this list and show you some of the semantics of it. 2632 West Huron. That was a property here in Chicago, a single-family home. A builder had it kind of flopped upside down, left it in a little bit of a mess, so it did need some repairs. And I will tell you, when you work the short sale business, you'll start to talk about the business with attorneys, with inspectors, with contractors. You will know the right people in no time at all when you have the product out there. 2207 Brentwood. I'll explain the dilemma that we had with that, and we just closed that a couple weeks ago. 3706 Saratoga. This is actually one of the very, very few properties that we do from, we just did a negotiation. So we took a negotiation fee. I do have a brokerage, and we'll get into that as well, that we took the commission off there. 657 West Fulton. We actually purchased that property, 159th Tinley Park, Spalding. And those three we currently own, and we'll be closing those in the week. On all of those, and all those have anywhere between a $20,000 and $30,000 spread. So each one of them have been great to us. But let me go over the deals that we've actually closed. So Burton, we purchased this property. It was a B of A property, and we've used a couple different tactics that we've talked about in previous. So in this one, we're just going to go over the basics, not get too deep on it. But there is other levels of things here. So we paid $410,000. We actually had to pay more for the second mortgage, $15,000 more than we paid as investors and buyers and purchasers on top of what we typically give a second mortgage, which was outside of on the seller side, but the buy side. So our total deal cost was about $421,000, and we ended up selling it for $500,000. The thing about this one is this was actually a builder that came to us with the property, and he just really needed the property because it was a double lot. He had 2 buyers for this property already, so he really came to us wanting us to get the deal done. And he said whatever you could make below $500,000, he was willing to give us the profit on this. So this was a great day for us. Made $78,500, obviously minus closing costs and a few other things, but it was roughly around that ballpark for all purpose sakes. 2632 West Huron. The whole short sale on this one was probably about 5 or 6 months. The first time out, we really didn't get the deal done because the BPO, and we'll kind of talk about different ways of manipulating, or should I say validating the BPO on this. We purchased it for $270, and we put about $8,000 into it. I had a leaky skylight, a porch that was leaking as well, and then there was a few other places that had leaks. The whole place needed to be painted. And we spent about $8,000, so out of pocket we were into it for about $278. We sold it for $355. Made a profit of about $77,000 on that. So here's our actual approval. You can see down here that we actually paid $270. I'm a broker, so I actually ended up getting some of the commissions. A lot of the deals that we actually do, and I know we don't go too far into cost on this, but we'll actually pad the HUD and we'll get the bank to actually pay us a seller concession. I would say 70 to 80% of our deals, they pay us a concession when we purchase the property. And then finally, you can see it was a nice property. Like I mentioned, this was a developer that kind of went belly. He had a lot of stuff in there. Beautiful property. We just sold this thing back, just a 12-12 of this at $355. So it was a great deal. Really, it was about 5 months worth of work on it to make about $70,000. The next deal, this was a little bit longer, and I'll tell you the dilemmas on this and maybe give you a tip or so on this. We purchased this. This was another B of A file that we actually used the dovetail, and we're not going to get into the dovetail technique in this phone call, but we purchased it for $245. They actually did give us a little bit of a credit, but unfortunately, this was a builder that was going to build on this lot, and the person that lived in the property was a tenant. Well, needless to say, we had to purchase the property because we were running out of time with the expiration of our approval letter, and the tenant decided that she wasn't going to get out. So it took us literally 2 months. We had to evict her. So we ended up paying to move her property, to pay for her movers, to get her a new place. So we actually spent $4,000 out of pocket to get the tenant out of the property, and it literally cost us that plus 2 months of money or juice on our money that we used to purchase the property. So, but either way, we out of pocket we were about $249, and we ended up reselling it for $299. And with this, during that period of time, we actually went in and out of buyers a couple times as well. We had a builder that wanted to build on that unfortunately couldn't get financing. We had another building, same problem. Finally, a nice couple purchased the property, and it worked out well for them, and it worked out well for us. So, between the 3 deals that we have closed in the month of December, we're talking in excess of almost a little over $200,000 with that. But that's gross. I mean, I had to pay hard money, repairs, a few other things, expenses, my team, my processors, my loss mitigation department. So was it a good deal? Yes, it was fantastic. I can't complain for Christmas and technically being a slower part of real estate. So I want to tell you a little bit about my struggle, because maybe this will kind of hit home with you guys, some people that are doing the business or thinking about doing the business or on the verge of it. I started in real estate really on a part-time basis as a real estate agent. So I come from the real estate agent side of it back in 1999. And I also was a commodities broker at the time, so I owned what they call a non-clearing FCM, which I just put trades through for traders. So I actually moved my business out of an office into my home, and did both businesses until like 2003, and then I actually got my broker's license and become a full-time broker where I manage myself and work for myself. I worked for Century 21 for a little bit and realized all the money I gave to them was literally money that I could have just put in my pocket to learn and educate. I did my very, very first rehab in 2005. I got a condo in the building I lived into. It's a huge condo. A couple was actually in divorce. When they bought it, they bought the basic bare bones nothing. I got it, rehabbed it, made about $80,000, and that's really where I started to get my appetite wet out on this. And when you make a little money in real estate, and back then things were good, commissions were good, rehabs were good, I decided to partner in a restaurant in 2006. A buddy of mine owned a little boutique restaurant. We worked together, but with him, I actually helped him when I was a real estate agent find his condo. So he ended up selling his condo, took about $250,000. I took $50,000, and we partnered into this restaurant. Well, when he opened the restaurant, he actually sold his other condo. I did it for free because I was being a good guy at the time, and he had his condo just above the restaurant. So that literally didn't get through much of 12 months, and the restaurant was bankrupt. He was literally spending almost $50,000 a month. I don't know how the cost got out of control. I couldn't stop it. It was more than he can handle, and things started to spiral for me. I was actually in a bad relationship. I was married at the time, and we were in the middle of separating at that time. We had properties that we had owned together that we had started liquidating, and I could probably say, looking back now, that was a good thing, because some of the property we got rid of before things really started falling. We had a property in Arizona, and that property in itself just started pulling out money out of our pockets. We couldn't sell it. The market turned around drastically. So really, one of the first short sales I ever did, so when we talk about short sales and how people feel and how tough the market is, I mean, one of the first short sales I did was a short sale I had in Arizona. So at that point, real estate had turned around. My business had turned around. My relationship had turned around. Everything that I had previously in the last 2 or 3 years had literally fallen apart. So I came to a point, I had no options. I had gotten myself into debt from the rehabs, from the rentals, from the marriage and everything else. So I literally was almost $250,000 in debt at the time, and it was crazy. Now, if I fast forward to today, which is literally only 5 years later, this year our business grossed just over $1 million for the year. So our business has been great. Do I get all that money? No. But is my business moving forward? Do I have a lot of deals in the pipeline? We do between 100 and 150 at one time. Our business has been fantastic and growing steadily. So, when people talk about bad business, what's going on, I could tell you from the bottom of my heart that I've had it really tough. I literally had borrowed money from friends back in 2007, where today, I'm remarried, I have 2 beautiful kids, and life couldn't be better. So, the time is now. The time is now more than anything else to get involved in short sales. And the first thing, we're going to get into is really my short sale automation system. Now, when I say automation, I mean that I don't personally have to do the work. I'm not the one, meeting the BPO. So the short sale business, we're going to kind of talk into detail on that. We're going to talk a little bit more about the foreclosure process, what to look for in a judicial state versus a non-judicial state. So again, as we get into this, I'm going to go over a lot of the basics, but as we kind of dig into the presentation here, I'm going to give you guys nuggets and some tips and some really solid information that has made my business boom over the last 3, 4, and 5 years. Next, we're going to talk about qualifying, negotiating, even closing a prospect. If you guys were on my short sale intervention secrets last week, I talked a lot about how to close a prospect, what to do, and that's one of the things. If you guys want to write this down, if you go to shortsalesecretsonline.com right now, you guys can actually get a free copy of the book that I did, as well as a book that we put together for our True Life 360 people. You guys get that right now while we're in the middle of this presentation. It's definitely worth a ton of experience and a ton of time. I've literally poured my heart into that, as well as this presentation and giving you some information about the bare bones. We're going to get into listing and selling short sale properties, loss mitigation, and I say that as a department because when I first started, I started loss mitigation. I did all that work myself. Then the first person I hired was a loss mitigation person. Then now I have a department with 2 or 3 people that actually call on all my files all the time. We're going to get into the BPL. Of all the things that are probably one of the most important things is the BPO. And I'm going to tell you what, if you can find the most A-type person that loves to talk to people, that if you meet this guy or have a BPO, he's like your best friend. So I hired a guy who's a really good friend of mine that literally any person that meets this guy loves him, first hands out. And so, you want to talk about that, but you could do it as well. And then selling homes fast, it's kind of a bonus that I want to go over at the end of this, that just before I started getting into investing full-time as an agent, there was a way that I was able to literally sell properties that I was listing for other homeowners within a weekend. It was amazing, and I'll get a little bit into that at the end of this presentation. So let's get into the meat and the matter of this thing. So starting from the beginning, so the first thing, people talk about short sale, short sale, short sale. So what is a short sale? A short sale is just this: is when a bank is willing to take less than what they owe on the loan that they're willing to pay for. So in a nutshell, if they have a $200,000 mortgage, we go to the bank and say, we're willing to pay $100,000. So the bank is willing to accept less than their full payoff for the mortgage that they had of $200,000. Let's say in this case $150,000. So they've taken a loss of $50,000, but they've taken less than what it's actually worth. So that's a short sale. And the great thing, as I mentioned in the earlier part of this presentation, is that's control. Short sale is we're going to make our own profit. So if it's a $200,000 deal, we're going to go in there and negotiate. I'm going to negotiate 60 cents on the dollar. So some people can negotiate 90 cents on the dollar, 80 cents on the dollar, 60 cents. So the better that you get, the better that you work on the details, you can make your own profits in this. So the bigger question is, why would a lender consider taking a discount? I'm going to tell you what. I mean, here's the first thing: is lenders aren't in the business of holding property and selling property. They're in the business of lending. So what they say is a typical lender, if they're in the foreclosure process, number one, the biggest thing is if the lender's in default with a homeowner that's missed payments. Well, if it's a $200,000 mortgage, the bank has to have a cash reserve of anywhere from 3 to 6 times that amount. And it depends on the bank, it depends on the situation, but literally if it's a $200,000 defaulted loan, the bank has to have somewhere in the ballpark of 600,000, maybe to 1.2, somewhere on the side. So they literally have to, have that money where it's not working in their favor. So why does a lender want to take a discount? They want to get that bad debt off their books immediately. Not only is it bad for their books, but they also have investors. They're corporations. There's companies. So they have to make their numbers look good to keep their numbers on Wall Street. That's very, very important. So you gotta understand their position on this thing. So now, why would a seller consider a short sale? Well, a seller has a variety of options. When I first started doing short sales, one of the biggest things, or one of the other options that a homeowner had, was to do a forbearance. Forbearance was simply that a homeowner missed a couple payments. They took those payments, they put them on the back end of their mortgage, and then they changed their mortgage payment because now they owed more on their mortgage. So what that did, in essence, is it actually increased their monthly mortgage payment. Well, let me tell you what, when somebody's behind on payments or struggling with their payments, they do not by any means have extra cash to come out of pocket. So forbearance was just not a good thing. The next option that a lot of people talk about is bringing their mortgage current. They borrowed money from their friends, family, stuff like that. Is that an option? No, probably not a good one, and it probably, if it doesn't last very long. The next one would be your loan modification. Loan modification is all over the place. We have the government stepping in, and unfortunately, they're not doing that great of a job. And we're not here to bash the government, but I'm going to tell you, every program that they've put on place for their short sale side of it, for their loan modification side of it, just doesn't work. And really, in my eyes, and everyone that I work with, is a loan modification is simply just a bandage, because there's two things that are taking place here. Is number one, most properties are upside down, so that's one problem. Number two, the mortgage payment that the people are making, or the homeowners are making, they can't afford. So of the two legitimate problems in a loan modification, yes, the bank could reduce the amount of payment each month, but in the same sense, they're not going to make the loan value drastically lower, because if they do it for one, they're going to have to do it for everyone. So loan modifications typically don't work. Most of them fall apart. So it's just a bandage. And really, for us in short sales, the market's getting worse. Loan modifications over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years are going to continue to fall apart. So you're going to have just a surplus of short sales for now and for really the next 3, 4, and 5 years. So if I could tell you, would you have wanted to get in 5 years ago? Heck, I don't know. I mean, it was a tough time at points, but right now is probably one of the best times, but you do need some help and some other things. And so what may be the main reason for a homeowner's default? A lot of times it's people are losing jobs, people have drug problems, people have drinking problems, people are in a divorce. I mean, for myself, I was in a bad situation that way. So there's a lot of different reasons that people fall into default, but whatever they are and whatever the reason they fall into default, that's an option. So that's where this crisis continues to steamroll. Now we're more of a domino effect. So let me ask you, how do we make huge profits with short sales? So the short sales is really fantastic, because when we say short sale, we're negotiating debt. So if you know how to negotiate debt, you know how to get yourself a rock bottom price, and we're going to go over certain techniques in this presentation, and then you know how to resell it, maybe do a little bit of work, slap some paint on it, put some carpets into it, and then resell it for a little bit of a profit. I mean, there's profits from anywhere from 5, 30, 40, 80. We've made almost $100,000 before by doing a little bit of work. So what does that total business or short sale business look like? It actually looks like three things. The first thing is we got to acquire it. So we have to get. So where do we get the deals? I've gotten a lot of my deals from. Well, let me take a step back. I've gotten a lot of my deals when I first started from door knocking, from postcards, from signs. There was literally a lot of different places that I got deals. But the main thing is because I was an agent. I worked with real estate agents. I was the solution to their problem. They didn't have a contract on the property, which I was the investor at the time. They didn't have someone to negotiate the deal for them, so I came and negotiate the deal for them, and I took care of all the pieces. So what I was able to do is I was able for them to go back and become a real estate agent, and they didn't have any answers. So that was great for me. So how did I really determine a good deal or a bad deal? Well, the great thing about short sales is I have really two criteria of a good or bad deal. Number one, you need to have a lot of comps in a specific specific area. I live in the city of Chicago, so the only two requirements that I have is I don't want to buy a property technically in a ghetto, and I don't want to buy a condo in the suburbs because there's not a lot of condos that comp that condo off. So almost everything else is a great deal. And probably the worse shape the property is, the more excited I become because I have the resources and I have the people to go in there and fix the property and add instant value to it. Can you do it? Of course. I'm going to tell you what, when you start telling people you do short sales and you're involved in short sales, everyone's going to start crawling out of the woodwork asking you questions. And so how do I attract distressed homeowners? Just throwing your name out there. Become the expert. So everything you're going to get in this presentation, I'm going to give you the nuts and bolts where you're going to know more than 95% of most people out there, because most people don't know that much. You'd be surprised the things I've heard people say about short sales. The next thing is the negotiation. When I started, I would tell anyone that's starting short sales, you have to call the bank a couple times. You have to know what they have to say. You have to know what their systems internally are like. You have to know what they're going to talk about on the phone. When I started, there was one person that worked in a loss mitigation department, and they dealt with the whole process. Now they have processors that then put the package together, that send it to a negotiator, then sends it to an investor. Does that sound complicated? Yes, but the nuts and bolts of it, it's so much easier today. Negotiating is absolutely unbelievable. The things that you really need to do is just follow up, and we'll get into loss mitigation in this presentation. Next, dispose of or selling the property. So who will buy my property? And here's the things. When I started, you can build a buyer's list. You could do anything else, but I'm going to tell you one simple key, so you may want to write this down, is a good listing agent or being a broker is absolutely the easiest way to sell property, because I'm going to tell you this, 90% of most properties are sold through the multiple listing service. 90%. So write that down. 90% of the most properties are sold through the multiple listing service, because here's the deal, is serious buyers want to see where the surplus of all the properties are at, so they want to go where all the properties are located. So a buyer, because the deal is free to them, is going to a real estate agent. It doesn't cost them anything, and they want to go get the best deals around the block. So a real estate agent, we've probably sold, and I'm going to say this, 99% of our deals through the MLS. It's fabulous. And so finally, cash to checks. Here are 4 different ways that we've gone about in processing and cashing our check. We acquired them, we negotiated, and then we sold them. And here's it. We've done simultaneous closings. When I started back in 2006, 2007, the great thing about this business is you could actually use the money from the second buyer to get the deal done. Does that work anymore? No, absolutely not. Simultaneously closings, are they illegal? Absolutely not. Have people spoken about them or frowned upon them? Of course. But our double closings, they work all the time. I know tons of people in my True Life group are out there. You know what? I see your questions, everybody. I want to stop for a second. I'll be more than happy to answer those at the end of the presentation. So if you don't mind, I'll be more than happy to answer all those questions for you. So simultaneous closings, we still do them. In my business, I've set it up so probably the shortest time frame we actually hold the property is 2 weeks. The longest property, we've had properties for 6, 7, 8 months. We still own some properties, but they're purposely, held. Typically, our average deal, and we did 82 deals, transactions last year, we held our average property 62 days. Uh, I work with a great investor. We have a great setup, so we'll talk about a sign of contract. Actually, this one at Burton Place that I just told you about the closing, the developer actually purchased the contract that we purchased from someone else. So you can negotiate the deal, get a deal, and assign your contract to an investor, charge him, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, and make a little bit of money on the deal. Hard money transaction, do the whole deal yourself. Be the investor, be the negotiator, be the whole thing, and use hard money, pay them, and get the deal done. My favorite and what I use now, which is the easiest, is I partner with an investor. My partner has $3, $4, $5 million readily available to him. He has family money and other money if we need to do $10 to $15 million. So money is important, but I will tell you this, that there's a lot of money out there, and if you walk the walk and talk the talk, you can get money very, very easily out there. So now let's do this, because this is probably more important and determining your market and being more of a niche. So what type of short sale are you looking for? Me, I'm looking for most all short sales except for properties in the ghetto and condos in the suburbs. But if I were you and I were starting out, and if I were to redo this again, I would actually concentrate on the area of average homes that you live by, because you know your neighbors, you know your homes, you know your area. I was a real estate agent, so I was familiar with the entire city, so I had an advantage at that level. But if you're starting out again and you're talking about building the building blocks for a successful short sale at the basic level, start with average homes, because first off, they're easier to talk to because people can relate to you. You live down the block, you have 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, very similar house. You also know the neighborhood. You know what it's like. You know what properties are selling for. You know what the houses that are in foreclosure are like. You know what the houses that aren't in foreclosure. So if you specify and look at homes in your area, whether it's average homes, luxury homes, I will tell you, we have done some luxury homes where you can make a large spread on that, but it takes a little different components. Things need to be put together. You have to have a lot more money. You need to make sure that it works. But are they easier to do? Yes. Luxury homes are much easier to negotiate with the bank. Investment properties, we work with those. We have worked with those. I'm going to tell you what, I would personally shy a little bit away from that, because investment properties usually entail a homeowner that has had tenants in there and problems. And let me tell you what, if you have a tenant in a property that's in foreclosure and that tenant finds out for 1 second you're not paying the mortgage, he's not paying you. So you're not getting any more money out of him, and he's going to live for as long as he can for absolutely nothing. I've had that happen more times than I care, and I'm going to tell you what, it's really a pain in the butt. So specific areas, find your niche, stay in your area, do what you know best. It's probably the best. So next thing, let's briefly talk about the foreclosure process. What type of state do you live in? I live in a judicial state, the mortgage and foreclosure side of it. There's non-judicial states. There's also non-judicial states or judicial states that are 21-day states. So really the most important thing you need to know is the judicial, because you need to know the process. We're not going to get deeply into the process. You can Google that or find that information out, but you do need to know what state it is. But you also want to know what the timeline is and how the timeline works. In my state, usually there's 30 to 60 days that a homeowner is behind on payments. They get what we call the lais pendens. The lais pendens is filed with the court system in our county. The county then serves the homeowner, and they get a summons. It's a pretty good size package, probably a ½ inch thick, so it's a lot of paperwork. Pretty scary when a sheriff comes to your door with a stack of paper and you're behind, so kind of a frightening moment for people. And then the process starts. So as soon as they get that paperwork, we literally have 210 days or 7 months in our system to work through the process. Can that process be extended? Can it be pushed along? Of course it can. A little bit of nugget when you're dealing with homeowners that are in foreclosure, tell them to open their mail. Most people try to bury their head in the sand. They don't know what to do. They don't know even where to go. They literally bury their hand, and they have a stack of mail, probably as high as can be, that they don't even open. So open the mail, go to the courts, and make sure they know exactly where they stand with everything through the process, because I'm going to tell you what, the process can be stalled. It can be held up. There's ways of doing that, and we're not going to get into stopping sales. I have absolute techniques that we can utilize to stop sales almost within a 24-hour notice, but again, that's outside the scope of this. But know your timelines, because after the 210 days in my state, then I have another 30 days for approval and 30 days for vacancy. So typically in a judicial state, it's 10 to 12 months. I know my home that I actually shorted in Arizona, that's more of a trustee state. So that was 90 days. It moved very quickly, so you have to be more on top of the process and go with it. So wherever you're at, whatever state you're at, just make sure you know your timelines. And this kind of information is very important. So when you work with clients, the more solid information and the more helpful information you can give them, the easier it is. So how long before your property goes to sale? One of the things you want to do when you meet with a homeowner, and even for yourself, because you don't want to waste your time doing a short sale, when the next thing you know, the property went to sale, you can't get it back. You don't really want to do that. So you want to know when the sheriff sale is, just for your protection, because you don't want to waste time doing a short sale that's already gone to sale. And then bankruptcy. The first thing that you do in this is you want to talk a little bit about bankruptcy. You want to talk about a Chapter 7, which is really a straight bankruptcy or liquidation of assets, or a Chapter 13, which is a repayment plan. Those are really the two things when you're dealing with short sales that you have to be concerned about. And I will tell you this, a bankruptcy does not erase a foreclosure. The only thing that it does, and I want you guys to write this down, it halts it. It puts it in kind of a frozen position. So if you're in the middle of a short sale and your client files bankruptcy on you, you're stuck. You can't actually talk to the lender or anything about this file until the bankruptcy has been dismissed, or what they call relief from the bankruptcy stay. So we can get into more facts on another date on that, but that's the basics. Find out if they're in bankruptcy, and a lot of times you could use bankruptcy with a short sale before or after the stop of sale date. So know your laws in your state, and make sure you use bankruptcy as more of a tool to stop a sale date, because some lenders, for example, like Ocwen, won't stop a sale date, and you may have to use that as a technique. So the next thing is qualifying, negotiating, closing. The first thing you want to do is you want to do your first call. You always want to have a script. You always, when you talk to a homeowner, and me, I've done this 5 years, and I still, when I meet a homeowner for the very first time, and I got to tell you, I haven't really met with a homeowner in maybe 6 months, but maybe once when one of my guys were in the office. But I wanted to sit down and go through a script as well. I mean, you want to ask questions that they're most interested in. So the first question you'll always ask a homeowner on the first call, what are you most interested in? Are you interested in selling the property, refinancing the property, keeping the property? You want to know where their head's at with this process and where to go with the whole thing. So you want to make sure that you take care of that. You want to make sure where that's at. The next thing is you want to know how much will you take for the property. You want to know if they're going to sell it, how much they want to sell it, because I'm going to tell you what, most homeowners are delusional of what they think the property is. They think their property is worth what they thought it was 3 years ago, which is a complete fantasy. So you want to make sure you ask that question. You want to ask them if they had an appraisal. Most times when I talk to homeowners, because I still do train my staff, is that a lot of people have appraisals for when they purchased the property. So they're still stuck on that price. They know prices have gone down, but they by no means understand to what level they've gone down. You want to find out what repairs on the property, how many payments have you missed at this point. And so what you want to do is when you're on that first call, you want to ask very non-threatening questions to a little bit more abrasive questions, because when you start getting to how many payments have you missed, how long has that gone, that gets a little bit, how long is your mortgage, stuff like that. You really want to make sure you built a little bit of rapport. So with that script, the other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you talk about the property. You talk about, how many bedrooms is this? How many bathrooms is this? Do you have a garage? Is this, a Cape Cod, or is this a bi-level or a split level? Because I will tell you, people love talking about things that they're interested in or that they know. They live there. They live the property. They obviously bought the property for a reason, so they love the property. So let them talk. Let them speak. And so one of the things, and I actually spoke about this at my short sale intervention secrets, when you talk to a client, and the best thing you could do is, let me give you a ratio, so write this down. Ask questions, speak 30% of the time, listen 70% of the time. If you apply that rule, ask a question, listen, and only talk a very 30% of the time, you're going to get the client to work with you, because there's two things that clients do when they want to work with you. Number one, they trust you and they like you. There's usually not many other reasons why they want to work with you, so you want to do that. Then the next thing is, a lot of times you get that first call, you see your phone ringing, you don't recognize the number, and you don't answer. So then you have to call them back. So the three things that you want to remember when you want to call them back, you got to ask them three things. First off, ask them what we're looking to sell the property for. It's a very unevasive question. Second thing is, how long have you had it on the market, and how long have you lived there? And then finally, you want to just ask them, what was the original price that you purchased the home for, and what was the value? So all those are very three non-evasive questions. And when you're talking to them, talk to them like you're talking to your buddy. Talking to you like I'm talking to you guys right here. I mean, you want to make that person feel like that they're important, but they're a friend. You know, that you trust, they trust you, and you can trust them to give you the right information with that. So, and then finally, let's get into the meeting, the meeting itself. So the meeting, what forms, what do you want to do? So what forms do you bring to a meeting? The very first meetings that I brought, I put together a folder. I labeled the folder, so when you have things together and organized and already pre-planned, you look prepared. So the first thing you want is a contract. After that, you want to go in disclosure. So we have specific types of disclosures that we use with this, and I'll go into that and a little further into this presentation. An authorization to release, a home inspection report. We actually have a 10-page credibility brochure, and really it doesn't even talk that much about us. It talks about facts. It talks about information. It talks about useful information that that client needs to make a decision on moving forward with their foreclosure process. So those are very, very important. The next thing at the meeting that I think that everyone has to know, as I mentioned, the credibility brochure, but really you got to talk about the consequences. You got to talk about people's fiduciary responsibility. Me as a real estate agent, my fiduciary duty, and this has crossed the line and gone back and forth over time, is that back in 2007, 2008, as a real estate agent or a broker, our fiduciary duty was to get the highest price possible for a homeowner. In today's market, our fiduciary duty is to help the homeowner stay out of foreclosure. Does that necessarily mean to get the highest price? No. That means that they get the deal done. That's important. A deficiency. You want to explain to the homeowner what's going to happen with the deficiency. One of the things that we'll get into is the Mortgage Forgiveness Act of 2007. So if a homeowner has lived in their home 2 out of the last 5 years, and it doesn't matter which 2 out of the last 5 years, and they can actually, and if they're either insolvent or they're not, they can actually write off up to $250,000 per individual, $500,000 for a couple if they have a deficiency on the mortgage. So, and that's also if the bank's willing to 1099 them, and we'll get into that. So next thing is short sale versus foreclosure. You want to sit down with them. The one thing I do with homeowners is say, hey, here's a short sale, here's a foreclosure. Those are really, if you talk about all the different options that are available to a homeowner, that they really qualify for. They're not going to qualify for a loan modification, forbearance, bringing things current, all those different options. The only two real options that a homeowner has and that they have to wrap around their head is the short sale versus foreclosure. So you want to talk about the differences, the pros and the cons. The foreclosure, it's going to be, a foreclosure in our state, a foreclosure means that the bank could go after a homeowner up to 3 times over the next 20 years. A foreclosure means that their credit could be dinged a little bit harder than a short sale. A foreclosure means it's going to take them longer to get a loan or try to rebuy a house, especially when properties are at incredible value. So I have a full sheet that goes over all of these information that literally talks about the credit, your deficiency. If you have a foreclosure, if you're working at a job and somebody pulls your credit report and sees that you have a foreclosure, you might lose a job because so there's so many different things that take place that you have to be aware of between foreclosure versus short sale, and how important is it that your client understands that a short sale is important, because some people get to the point during this process of being foreclosed upon about being overstressed and not having money and falling into this process is that they don't know where to go and they give up. You have to show homeowners that they can't give up. So it's your job to make them understand the consequences of the short sale versus foreclosure. The tax liability. You want to make sure when we negotiate all our deals, we want to make sure our clients have a full release. If they don't have a full release, one of the things and one of the techniques we use is we actually have a promissory note. So you guys want to write this down. What we'll do is if a lender wants to take a deficiency, what we'll do is say, hey, let's take a promissory note instead. So instead of maybe owing $100,000 as a deficiency, the bank, and a lot of times this comes from a PMI company for a promissory note, is they'll take a $20,000 promissory note. Then the next thing that we do is once they agree to that, so we go from a large number of 100,000, which is their deficiency, to a $20,000 promissory note. And then when we get right to closing, we'll ask the note holder and say, hey, how about if we give you $5,000 cash today instead of having payments over the next 8 years, 10 years, and we'll pay for that ourselves. So a lot of times we have in the past paid for notes for our clients to make sure that they don't have any deficiency and they get a full release. So that's important. So affect your credit, I mean, it speaks for itself. You go 30, 60, 90 days. It just beats your credit up. When your credit gets beat up, you can't buy a car. You can't use your credit cards. Your mortgage and your payments get shut down. So I mean, it's terrible. And then finally, your recourse versus your non-recourse. I'm in a recourse state, meaning that our lenders can go after people in Arizona and other states, which are non-recourse states. People can take out a mortgage, but the bank cannot go after them for any circumstances. So that gives people a little bit better peace of mind. So these are consequences that you guys need to know, talking to clients, doing the business, being part of this. There's so much things to do. Now, the next step is listing and selling a short sale property. Strategies on listing a property. One of the things, and this is a technique that I'm going to tell you about, if you're doing short sales, you have to break up your listing with your agent into 2 segments. And I use 2 stages in my short sale process. There's a beginning process when it's before the BPL, and when it's before the BPL, the first thing that you do is you want one picture, which is the front of the property. The next thing you do, the verbiage in the listing must state nothing. You can't tell whether this is the nicest house on the block or the ugliest house on the block because you can't tell it in the verbiage. And then the price needs to come down. So in the first stage before the BPO, you can't allow the BPO agent, and we'll get into what the BPO agent is, to sell the property during that time. I mean, it's impossible. Then once the BPO comes into play, they've done everything they do. We've come back to the bank. The banks give us a value. We know where we stand with the property. Then we cancel the listing. We relist the property. We put pictures on it. We put virtual tours on it. We change the price on it. We do everything we can to make that property more sellable at that point. So we want to make sure that when you're listing it, and a strategy for listing agents, you've got to adhere to that, because if you leave a listing at a much higher price, your BPO has that higher price all the way down to your contract price to come in with the bank, which could, a lot of times, they're lazy, and we'll talk about how much money they get paid. It's not worth their time unless they're doing a lot of them to do this. So the next thing is establishing a price. You know, you have to really establish a price that'll sell. You know, I talk about it in my short sale intervention secrets, how to establish an exact price, but more or less when you're doing this business, you want to know the bottom range of comps, how many repairs and what needs to be fixed on the property. And I'm going to tell you what, one of the things that we've done over the last year, year and a half, is we've gotten an appraisal. Now, you know, we were doing a lot of business, and at the end of last year, 2000, now we're 12, 11, 10, we actually, a couple months, we were spending $5,000, $6,000 on appraisals. Well, what we did in 2011, we actually had homeowners write checks to appraisers. Now, you guys have to understand that we cannot accept money for doing a short sale, but we can have the homeowner pay an appraiser, which has nothing to do with the short sale process, pay for them. So that's one of the things that we do. You know, additional agent disclosures. If you're an agent, if you're an investor, and we'll get into that, you want additional disclosures about risk. You want to tell them that the property could go into foreclosure, and if it does go into foreclosure, they're not going to hold you liable, because you know what? I'm going to tell you what, and I've told this to a lot of people, and I'm going to mention this on this presentation, is that over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, attorneys that are doing bankruptcies, attorneys that are doing short sales, they're bogged down with a lot of work right now, but when all this smoke clears and all this goes away and they have nothing else to do, they're going to be going after you and I to get some money. So you want to make sure you dot your I's, cross your T's, and make sure you disclose everything you do. And everything that we do with our business, we disclose it to the nth degree. And if somebody doesn't like it, we'll disclose it even more. So no matter what you want to know, and one of the things you want to take out of this, so write this down, disclose, and if you're still not sure what to do, disclose even more. You know, make sure that you disclose. And also, my last point here is work with an aggressive agent. Make sure that they're ethical, do their job, don't do anything out of the ordinary, but disclose, but be aggressive. I was an aggressive agent in my day. We're still very aggressive how we do our business model, but we also disclose. So you want to make sure that all works together for you guys. Next thing is when we sit down with a homeowner after we've gone with them, gotten the paperwork for them, I'm going to go over what I would call our acquisition paperwork would consist of. You know, the first thing that I do that I want to make a homeowner understand is, you guys could maybe want to implement in this your business, if you're working short sales, is give your homeowner a cancellation. The first thing I say is, look, if you don't want to do this and you find another option out, I actually give them a cancellation when we first do the paperwork or write a rescission for 3 days, but I also give them what I call my guaranteed easy exit to get out of the deal certificate. So I give them that at my very first meeting, or if they for some reason win the lotto or have a friend to give them money or decide to stay in their house, we can shred our paperwork. They sign the piece of paper, they fax it in, we ask them what they've decided to do, and we shred it up. We want to make sure that they have the best options to them available when they're doing a short sale. If I don't want to make money on someone's ill fortune, but if we can make money and help them out and have a win-win situation, that's exactly what we're looking for. The Mortgage Assistance Relief Program, which is MARS, this just basically came out last year, and it simply says, in a nutshell, you cannot accept money for doing a short sale. Back when I first started this, I would actually have people give me a deposit for doing a short sale, and I would give that back to them at closing, but that made sure that they were involved. You cannot do that anymore. You can't take money for doing the short sale whatsoever, so you want to make sure that the contract, you could get your typical contract from any one of your real estate brokers or people. Our contract is very extensive. It has a lot of different disclosures in that, and I'll show you guys how you can get more of that contract later on into this presentation. But the contract you use, you can get anywhere. But you do want to make sure there's a lot of things disclosed in that contract. But starting out with, you could just use a simple contract. Parties to the contract addendum. This is one of the things that the banks require a lot of people sign. We have our clients sign it up front just to tell the clients that we're going to buy the property as is. There's nothing fraudulent going on. Just basic information and an addendum. We also take what we call a notice of purchase contract. We want to make sure that when we get a contract on the property, if someone else tries to sidewind us or shortchange us, we'll actually put notice on title that we have a contract on the property. That's there to protect us. We've probably in the last 5 years only done that once, so it's not very important. Depending on your state and your practices and how people work, I know people in California are very afraid of somebody coming around and taking a contract from them. Bill of sale, just anything that's not attached to the property, your stoves, your dishwashers, stuff like that, you need to put in the bill of sale. Authorization to release, this is really your key to talking to the lender on the homeowner's behalf. So once your homeowner signs their authorization to release, and when I first started this, you didn't need anything. You could just have like a group. I'm known as River North Home Solutions. We would just put that on the release and do that. Nowadays, you have to have specific names. We actually, in our office, have bankruptcy attorneys and real estate attorneys that work with us, and we actually put their name on the authorization to release, which gives us a little bit more credibility. Just a little bit of a tip. Disclosure of non-financial counseling. You can talk to people about bankruptcy, about their financial situation, but you have to make them understand that you're not licensed to do that. If they have any questions about their circumstances or their financial dilemma, have them talk to a professional, an attorney, a CPA, any one of those people. So you just want them to know that you're not a counselor. And I tell that to people. Our affidavit of understanding is very extensive, letting them know that if the property does go into foreclosure, they're not going to blame us. We want to make sure we're protected. We also want them to go, hey, we're negotiating your property, but we're negotiating your property on our behalf. We're negotiating this property for our investors. And we want them to understand this. So this affidavit goes to an extensive detail to protect us and kind of cover our butts. The next thing that we have in our acquisition paperwork is an instruction to direct a listing agent. Sometimes we get deals of agents that we've never done business with, so we want them to be directed by their homeowner, not us. They don't know us. They know their homeowner, so they have that rapport and that reputation. They can work together. And finally, some of the deals we get are from real estate agents. Some of the deals we get are from bird doggers. Some of these are from people that aren't licensed. So we have a deal setup page, and this explains to where we got the deal, where it came from, what it's about, and we go through that. So this is our acquisition paperwork that must be turned in when clients with us. And one of the things I want you guys to know, when you meet with a client and have them go through this, initially you'll probably meet people at their house, but as you get into this, you'll want to meet them at their house, then you want them to meet them at your office. You want to make sure that they're willing, and I want you guys to take a note of this, is that they're willing to jump through some hoops to get this deal done, because I'm going to tell you what, I used to, when I started in real estate back in 2003, I would meet people at a Starbucks and down the block, and I would go to their home. I would run and do whatever I needed to do to get the business. Now, people, I don't even see properties anymore. They come to my office, they meet with my attorneys, they meet with my people, and they get notarized in my office. So they know we're legitimate, and we know for a fact they're willing to help themselves, because here's the deal. If they're not willing to help themselves, they're not going to help you get this deal done, and you're not going to make any money. You're going to waste a lot of time, and this thing's never going to close. And so they have to be willing to help themselves in order to get this thing going. Now, the next thing is my loss mitigation department. When I started, and this is the biggest thing I could tell anyone that's never done this before, is do it yourself. Next thing, that's the first person you hire, is to do a lot of loss mitigation. It's very time-consuming, a lot of calls. Each one of our loss mitigators can work on anywhere from 25 to 35 files at one time comfortably. and those are revolving files, meaning that they're moving, there's lots going on. You do have files that kind of sit dormant and that need some time. So loss mitigation department, the first thing you want to know is who's the lender on file. There's three types of lenders that I traditionally work with. Number one, you have your small local banks. A lot of times local banks, you have to be a little bit better with smoozing and knowing the business and what's going on, because a lot of local banks want what they get because they want the biggest bang for the buck, because the money they spent is very, very important. The second thing is you want to talk about medium banks, your Fifth Third, stuff like that. They're okay to work with. They're agreeable. And then finally, your big banks. They have procedures and processes. But here's why you want to know who they are. Your B of A's, everything you do through B of A has to be done through Equator. So everything on Equator needs to be done online. So the homeowner needs to get online and call B of A and let them know that they're facilitating or starting the short sale. You know, your Chases need Chase paperwork. Your Ocwins need Ocwin paperwork. So depending on who the lender is how you want to set up the short sale package. And here's the thing is you want to set up the short sale package to win. You want to make this thing work. So, you know, one of the things that I have, and we'll talk about setting up what I would call a perfect short sale package, or really a short sale package that'll win every time, is you want a homeowner sheet. The next thing is you want a hardship letter. And let me tell you this, I've been asked 1,000 times about hardship letters. What's a good hardship? Well, let me tell you what. Any reason why you haven't been able to make payments on your home is hardship. Whether it's, you know, you have 2 properties that you own, or you've been downgraded at your job, or whatever it is. I get a lot of people, you know, I can't afford it, or, you know, I owe so much on my property that I'll never get my money back. Well, that's a hardship. So write that down and give it to your lender. And I'm going to tell you what, I would probably tell you that most lenders don't read that, but I will tell you, because there's been one instance that I could tell you that I had a builder that wrote a hardship that we were doing a property on, that they literally did an investigation on his accounts and what he's done, and really did a full, almost cavity check about his financial situation with this property. It was pretty crazy. You're going to need financial statements with this thing. You know, 2 months financial statements. You need 2 years tax returns. Now what a lot of these lenders are asking for is what we call a 4506, because here's what happened in the good old days when we first started doing short sales, is that the lender would do a tax return. So you know those softwares out there, those Tax Pro, or, you know, you could do it yourself software program. Well, they would do their own self taxes, send them into the bank, but they'd never file them with the IRS. So they'd make their situation look worse than they are. So the banks caught on to that and got a little smarter. And what they've done is they want to make sure that, number one, that you filed. So they've done what we call a 4506 form. And then the next thing they've done is a 4506T form, which they want to see the actual return itself, so they know how much money you're on there and what you're getting. So it's very, very important with that and what's going on. You want to request a payoff. You want to see how far behind they actually are, how many payments they're behind, what they owe. You want to know what the account number is, everything that you need to contact the bank. You want the last two months bank statements, 30 days pay stubs, any information that you have on the property for a loan payment. The next thing is if you have a homeowners association. These are one of the things that in the city of Chicago, or some townhomes or stuff like that are there, is that a lot of these associations are owed back money. So you have to make sure when you're doing a short sale that you have all of that information on your HUD and all that information prepared for you to go with that. Any bankruptcy letters, anything you have with that, IDs, leases, tenants, all that information. One of the things that we do before we work with an investment property is if we have a tenant in the property, we want to make sure that we get the leases. We want to know, and we actually take over what we call as a forced placement with tenants nowadays. We have our own management company come in and force place the tenants and say, this building's being foreclosed upon, this new management company, so they don't stop paying rent. Paying rent is very, very important on what takes place with this thing, so it's critical. You guys have to make sure that that takes place. Property value, so you know the simplest formula, and I spent countless hours and days evaluating properties in different areas and different prices and different places, but I'm going to tell you a secret to all of this. Take all the property, and so write this down, take all the properties in a mile radius, every property that are 3-bedroom, 2-bath, just exactly similar to your property, take 60% of that value and send it to the bank. That's going to give you the best starting point possible, because I'm going to tell you a secret on this call. You can always negotiate higher, but there's also a secret that a lot of people get scared to do when they're doing short sales. You can also redo your contract lower. We've all gone back when the banks fought with us, and we know they're coming back to do another BPO or value. We've even lowered our contract price even lower. So very, very important. So now making the first call to the bank. One of the things that I stress more importantly is to have a script. Know exactly what you're going to say, know exactly what you're going to ask, because I will tell you, calling the bank for the first time is frightening. They seem so big and unruly, it's crazy, but they're probably no less than you do about the industry after this phone call, because they're working for $7,000, $8,000 an hour. They're not as big as they sound. You see Chase on the corner, you see Bank of America. Calling a loss mitigation department is by no means scary, but for the first time, I was sweating the first time. So put together a script, find out everything you need to do, and call them, send in the authorization to release information, and get the process moving. So submitting the first package. The first thing, and if you guys are doing short sales, or if you're going to submit a package for the first thing I can tell you is do not submit a package that doesn't have all the pieces that the bank requested. Not what you requested or what you think of or what you think the other bank. Make sure that you or the homeowner calls the bank and asks them specifically what they want, because one bank may require these items and another bank may require something else. So only give the bank what they want. And one of the other tips I'm going to tell you is never, ever, ever, like if you play poker, you never want to show your hand up front. Never give the bank your comms, your repair list, or anything else when you submit your package for the first time, because you know what you want to do is when you validating your price for your property, you want to give all that information to the BPO agent, because you don't want to give all that information to the bank, then give that to the BPO, and the BPO uses your information, and the bank's going, hey, how come our information looks identically as the BPO? Somebody must played a little bit of a game here. So you guys want to make sure that you don't do that. So do not, under any circumstance, submit comms with your short sale package when you first send it out, because you know what? They don't care. You could have the best comms, the best repair list, the best everything. They are still going to send somebody out to the property to do the value. And so that's really where the key comes into play, and we're going to talk about that just a little further in this presentation. So the next thing is this follow-up. It's a must. They'll tell you, they'll call you, they'll get back to you at the end of the week or when it's ready. They're never going to call you back. Let me tell you, when a loss mitigator or a processor in a loan department or a loss mitigation department of the bank call you back, it's probably going to be 1 in a million. So make sure that you have some sort of system. When I first started, I put together a 3-ring binder, and I put all my information in one place. I put all my contact information for the bank and all the information for the homeowner in the 3-ring binder. Every fax and everything I ever sent to the bank, I had very, very organized, and because you want to make sure that a lot of times the bank will lose paperwork because they're getting so much information sent to them. You want to make sure, because one of the first deals that I made in the business, I literally had to call Wells Fargo up. They were so organized. I sent paperwork to them on 18 different occasions, and I literally had to go back and tell them exactly each time I sent it, because they were sending the property to sale because they said they didn't have all the documentation. So that's another big reason why you want to submit a full package of them, because bits and pieces gets lost, and a lot of things could happen when you're waiting for that to happen. So make sure, follow up. So if they tell you to call back in a month, call back in 2 weeks. If you're sending a package, call them back immediately until you make sure they have everything they need in their system and confirm that. Talk, find out who you're speaking with, get their phone number, get their information, confirm that they have a full and completed package, and when you talk to them, at that point, prepare for the BPO. Ask them when they're going to send out the BPO. Sometimes they send it out immediately. Sometimes they send it out when they send the package to the investor. There's a lot of different things and a lot of different reasons when they send it, why they do it, and how they do it. I have no idea. But here nor there, you just want to make sure that you're prepared to get a value on the property. The next thing is the counteroffer. You want to make sure that the first thing, and I want you guys to write this down, and I tell this to my loss mitigation department all the time, counter offer in writing. You could talk to whoever you want, go back and forth. It really doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. It goes back and forth. Make sure that you do a counter offer in writing. So the next thing is, never believe them. When you're talking about a counter offer, never believe them, because I'm going to tell you what, I've found that they lie to you, and then they lie to you again, and they find another reason to justify why they lie to you, because we've had deals, and they've given us BPO property values for prices that aren't even conceivable or haven't even been sold on the MLS or anywhere out there. So don't believe what the bank says. So if you get a counteroffer, one of the first things I could tell you, they tell you an offer, send it back to them $1,000 higher and see what they have to say. eventually, if you kind of smooth and kind of be, flirty or kind of be friends with the loss media, they'll open up to you. Kind of play a game with them and see what they give you. I used to get negotiators to tell me exactly what the price, and if they couldn't give me the price, I'd ask them this: what properties did you guys use to come up with the value? Because I would get the address and then go back in my MLS and get the value. So write that down. That's super important to do that. And let them tell you a price. Let them make sure they do it. And so you guys understand now. Once you got a counteroffer, you want to give them your CMA, your work. So you want to give them all your values. You want to give them all your repairs. You want to give them pictures of your repairs. You want to give them an appraisal. Because here's the deal. And these loss mitigators understand that if you get an appraiser that works with you and works within the guidelines of an appraisal, let me tell you what, the bank understands that they can't lend money to a property that doesn't appraise out. So why should you buy a property that doesn't appraise out? Again, so use an appraisal to your advantage and make sure you can work with a very aggressive appraiser. So reason for declines, and this is very standard, your offer's too low. Sometimes you have an error on your HUD. You sent the information in, your HUD's wrong. Your language in your contract, I'm going to tell you what, we've had some contracts, they don't like our language that we're looking to buy it and resell it and how we disclose it. So I'm going to tell you that's a great thing, that they know what you have in your contract and you send them another contract because they've read it to you. They've told you exactly that we can't have language in this contract that says you can resell it. So send us another contract. So hence that be said, they know that you're going to resell the property. So investor guidelines, sometimes these investors, no matter what you tell them or how it goes, they're goofy. I mean, they're just outright goofy because they're losing money. And the same with an investor that has PMI on the property. So if you have private mortgage insurance, so you go through the loss mitigation process, you get their investor degree, and then they have to send the PMI. So when you're getting to know this, and that's part of the script, and one of the questions I have is their PMI, because that's going to cause your loss mitigation to be much longer than it needs to be. So, unsecured notes and debts, stuff like that. Hardship not proven. I've actually had a short sale decline because a builder lied about his hardship. So does it happen today? Does it happen very often? No. But does it happen? It happens. So, just be aware of that. And then acceptance of approval. Approval is where it's at. That's where you're making the money. That's where you're getting the deal done. So you need to understand your timeline of acceptance of approval. And there's two stages to this side of my business. So there's the side where we've done the deal, we've done a counter offer, we've got them to agree to a price, so the bank has given us a verbal commitment. Once you get a verbal commitment from the bank, typically what you're going to see is about 30 days until you get an approval letter and 30 days to you close. So that gives you 60 days to try to resell the property. One of the things I'm going to tell you, and this is things that have changed in the industry, and this is a tip. So if you do this, when I was doing these deals 2-3 years ago, we would put cash on our contracts. That would be a huge thing. Oh, hey, this is a cash deal. You can get it closed sooner than later. You don't have to worry about financing. Well, what's happened is banks don't care about that anymore. And so what was happening at the tail end of last year of the earlier part of 2011 is the lender would see, or the negotiator would see, that we had cash on our contract. And the next thing they would say, okay, we're only going to give you a week to close, because they knew it was cash, so we didn't have to wait for financing or underwriting or appraisal or any of those things, and they'd want it done immediately. So that started nipping us in the butt. So we went back to actually putting financing down, and my investor, where he was getting his money back, he put together a bank, and he had an approval letter and a denial letter and all those things. That's a whole other conversation, but you don't want to send your contract into the bank with cash any longer. You want to put sort of approval and some sort of process with that. So that's our loss mitigation. Let's talk about a little bit. I know we're kind of cruising on time, so I'm going to try to pick this pace up a little bit for you guys so we can get this thing done pretty quickly. The broker's price opinion. This, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is absolutely the most important thing I could ever tell you. So what is a BPO? A BPO is a broker's price opinion, and it really is just a real estate agent, not even a broker or maybe a broker. It's just a real estate agent that goes out and does a glorified comparative market analysis. I'm going to tell you what, when I first started back in 2007 doing short sales, one of the things I wanted to know is how the bank was valuing the property. So you can, if you Google how to become a BPO or broker price opinion, you could actually go do and get hired by the banks to do this for them. So I did this for the banks. I learned about what they were looking for, what they wanted, how it was, and I actually got probably my first 10 to 15 deals as a BPO agent, because when I went to the BPO, I would typically meet the homeowner, not an agent, and see if they were actually needed someone to buy the property. So it was a great way for me to get in, get some deals, get some property. So what is a BPO? It's just a CMA. It's just a value on the property that the bank looks for. So who does the BPO? You know, typically you're probably going to see 60 to 70% of the time is just an agent or broker, a real estate agent. 30% of the time I have seen appraisers that come out to do that. Sometimes Fannie and Freddie, they want 2 BPOs on this. So you have to be kind of aware of some of this stuff. But you also have to be aware of this, is that I'm going to tell you what, each one of these BPOs, by the time you leave your house, go to the property, take pictures of the property. And when you take pictures, you have to take a picture of every room, the front of the property, the back of the property, the street. So there's a lot of work involved with this. And it typically could be 3 or 4 hours. So these real estate agents are only getting 60, 70, and I know they've cut that down. So, I mean, these guys are getting peanuts to value a property where the bank is literally losing thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's absolutely insane to me. I mean, why would you not hire a full-blown appraisal to pay for this? But, you know, they do this so often. I mean, I've probably been at some properties with a BPO 5, 6, 7, a dozen times. So triggering the BPO, a lot of times the bank may do this as soon as somebody goes into foreclosure or in default on their property, but also when there's a contract submitted to the bank. So you guys need to be prepared before the bank comes out to the property. So if you're working with a real estate agent, you have to make sure that that real estate agent, once you sign a contract, doesn't let a single soul in that property. Because if this BPO agent gets in your property that you're working on for a homeowner and does a value, I'm going to tell you what, here's a problem. There's a conflict of interest, an innate conflict of interest, which I still don't understand this, because the only reason a BPO agent does BPO agents is get the REO. So that's a conflict of interest to me. So if I'm an REO agent and I want this short sale to fail, I'm going to give a high price. I'm going to give what even naturally, I want to give the bank what I think they want, and I think the bank wants the highest price. So that typically is completely opposite of what my buyer wants, because they want the lowest price. Because if I'm dealing with a short sale and I'm waiting for hours and doing this on countless things, they want to get this done. So fantastic. What I'm going to tell you is you meet the BPO at the property all times. You do not let them in without you being there, because you want to give them your package. You want to do the work. You want to do the comms. You want to show them the repairs. You want to tear this property apart. And the last thing that you want to do when you meet them, you have to ask them. And I'm going to tell you what, when I first did this, this is the toughest question you're ever going to ask. You have to ask them is, if all my numbers look right to you, do you think you can give us the price that we're looking for on our contract? You just want them to confirm that they're going to look at everything you do, because most likely they don't want to do all the work, they don't want to do all the comps, they don't want to do all the repairs, they don't want to do anything, but they want to look good to the bank that they're doing it for, or the asset value company, is they're going to take your stuff and give you what you want. So, you know, that's very, very important, and this is the name of the game, the broker's price opinion. It's very important. And you also, when you're talking to the lender, just one last thing, is you want to make sure that you do a drive-by. You don't do a drive-by versus an interior. The interiors, when they go into the property, a lot of times they'll have somebody do a drive-by to just get a value of it. So let's talk about my short sale automation system. The first thing is acquisition. When I started, I did it myself. Now I have other people doing this. So is it automated me? Of course, I don't have to do it. Negotiating, when I started out, I did it myself. I hired someone. Now I have a loss mitigation department that does it for me. And is that automated? I don't have to do anything. I don't call the bank. I haven't called the bank in years. Dispose or sell the property. I own a brokerage. I'm a broker. I have agents. They do that for it. And I have a solid investor. So, you know, you put a solid team in place. You get all the pieces and components. Is it hard to do? No. Does it take a little bit of time? Of course, but with the right guidance and the right help, you'll get exactly where you need to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite every one of you here to learn beyond the basics that we've talked about to our short sale rehab weekend. What we're doing is I'm part of a group called True Life 360. There's 9 of us that actually work this business and have been working this business for probably collectively on average 5 years, which in short sales is an eternity, because things change every 3 to 6 months. And we've done, I think I added up somewhere in the ballpark of $35 million in profits, in gross profits over the last 5 years, which is unheard of. So it's phenomenal. We want you guys to come when it's freezing cold in your town in February, to come to West Palm Beach. Now, if you hold on to me and listen to me for one more second, one of the things I'm going to tell you is we're going to give you guys a special coupon for this call and spending, you know, the last 45 minutes with me. Actually, it's been longer than that, so it's been 75 minutes, so I do appreciate it. your time and your energy. So go to Short Sale Rehab Weekend right now. But before you go, on here we have $297, and some of the things that we are going to talk about is what addendums, what information we're going to have out there. The Dovetail team, RealFlow, which is an automated software system that can run your business automatically online. Business development, how to grow your business, how to build a team, everything that you guys will ever need to run a short sale business, we are going to talk about at the Rehab Weekend. So if you go to Short Sale Rehab Weekend, and if you go today, so we're offering this 24-hour event rebate, and so what's happened is a lot of people, because of the tight economy, everything's going on, it's a little tougher for people to spend. When I did this, I probably spent $4,500 on one event, $3,000 on another. We literally want to give this away to you guys because, right now, I'm going to tell you what, I have a mission, a personal mission, which I call Save America's Homes. And what does Save America's Homes means to me is that over the next 5 years, I want to be able to touch and help 1 million homeowners save themselves from going into foreclosure. And so part of this Short Sale Rehab Weekend is this cause that we've come together to be part of it. So if you go to Short Sale Rehab Weekend right now and use this coupon code SS10, we're going to give you $200 off of that $297 value tonight. And what we'll do even better is when you guys actually show up at the event, we'll give you the $97 back. So we just want to hold $97 for today as a deposit for you guys to go to the event, and we're going to teach you everything. If you look at the page that we have at Short Sale Rehab Weekend, it'll tell you everything beyond what you guys went over in this Short Sale Basic Training event today. So you guys go there right now, put in the code, and literally this event will be zero for you. So before we continue to go, the one thing I do want to go is you guys might have some questions. I'm going to open this up a little bit and find out what you guys are looking for. I know you guys had a couple questions up front. So how are you purchasing properties, cash, or are you able to get bank mortgage financing? For me, one of the first things that I always did is that I use cash. I have an investor that does cash. He's partners in my business. He helps me run my loss mitigation department. So that was important to me. I probably give half of what I make away to him, which is worth every penny to me. Because I'm telling you what, I talk to people in this business that's not doing the business the way that I am, and that some people aren't in the business. So is money important? Yes. Can you get money? I'm going to tell you what, you will be surprised how easy it is to get money. And at the event, we'll talk about ways of actually getting money almost immediate for you to start doing deals and things that you're at. So I don't know if that was a good question for you. JR, is there someone else doing heavy breathing also on the line? Yeah, we have kind of a terrorist and a crazy guy back here doing stuff. So yes, we have stalkers on the line. So sorry about that. I wish I had read that a little bit earlier. So early on you said you look for two things to do a deal. High number of comps in the area, and what was number two? High number of comps. Two things I don't want in a deal. More importantly, number one is I don't want condos, because we're a big metropolitan city, so we do a lot of condos downtown, but we don't do condos in the suburbs because there's not enough comps, but we also don't work with properties in the ghetto. There's just too much theft, and we own a bunch of properties. We own collectively about 22 properties. Actually, we just sold one this afternoon, which I'm very happy about. We've had them broken into, ransacked. It's just they're really tough to deal with, especially if you're trying to resell them. So I would tell you, yeah, don't do that. So no ghettos and no small amount of comps in an area. All right. All right. So do you have an example of your credibility brochure? I do. If you do me a favor and you guys email me, I'll give you my most recent, because we actually just redid our logo. We completely redid our credibility brochure, and it's really designed for some of the systems and more advanced things that I do in my business. I have what I call, there's a lean satisfaction system that I work with that really pays off the note and goes into more details about my business, a little bit more advanced. Everything I've given you today should give you a kickstart of getting going, but that's a little more advanced. So let me give you a quick email. If you go to jrshortsales, SALES, at Gmail, and ask me for that brochure, I will send you a copy of that. And one of the nice things about that brochure is a lot of the information isn't really about my business, because I could show a lot of people about my business. That brochure is just about things that a homeowner needs to know when they're facing foreclosure, and gives them options and stuff like that. Some of the options we talked about, the Mortgage Forgiveness Act, things of that nature. What will actually happen with your credit, your short sale versus foreclosure, when we talked about that in this presentation, that's in there as well. So all those are in that credibility brochure. So you guys get that. Did you say you want the bank to do a drive-by or an interior BPO? Okay. Always, always, always. Sometimes the bank will do a drive-by. Do not allow them to accept that. You always want the bank to do an interior BPO because there's a lot more problems typically that are inside the property than are outside the property, and a lot of times they'll value it off. So you want to make sure that the bank does an interior BPO. Dave Schneider. I thought it was Stubby breathing heavy. Now, Dave. I shouldn't have read that, but I thought it was funny. If any of you guys have any other questions or want to talk about this thing, please feel free to give me another question. We'll do this for a couple more minutes. But if you haven't done anything at all, I want you guys to sign up now for the Short Sale Rehab Weekend. I want you guys to be part of our Save America's Homes cause so we can, over the next 5 years, change what's going on in this economy. Because I'm going to tell you what, short sales have been a godsend to me. They have been awesome. I've made a ton of money, and I've literally enjoyed real estate because at the end there, I really wasn't enjoying real estate because taking people, getting them into a new home isn't as rewarding as helping somebody save their home from foreclosure. So you guys go to Short Sale Rehab Weekend. Do that right now. Put the coupon code in for SS101. You'll get a $200 discount. So today you'll actually be charged your credit card for $97, and we'll give that back when you guys get to the event. So this is important. We want to see you guys there, and we want to make a difference here. Yeah. One last thing. Yeah, I got one here. I said, Julie, what type of format will the weekend consist of? We're going to talk about a lot of different things. If you guys actually go to Short Sale Rehab Weekend, that link there, it'll go over all the different things that you're going to look at. You're going to get on Friday a lot of what we talked about here, short sale basic training, and as you get further in the weekend, it'll be more advanced stuff, stuff that can really dramatically change your business if you're currently doing short sales. I mean, this seminar and presentation was really designed to give you the nuts and bolts of the business, but there you're going to get a lot of other things. I had a little bit more of an advanced webinar last week about what I call my short sale intervention secrets. Again, get that book at shortsalesecretsonline.com. We're giving that away for free as just showing you our appreciation for being here, and that's going to give you a lot of tips and information too, which we'll talk about more of that as well. How are you purchasing your short sales? I'm not sure if I really understand that. We put a contract in. We pay cash for all of them. There's not one short sale that we do that we don't pay cash for, so they're all cash. And that's really it. So how are we purchasing them? I hope that answers your question. I don't know how specific. If you want to get a little more specific with how we purchase them, we purchase everything with cash. So again, when you guys go to the Short Sale Rehab Weekend, hit SS101 just to make sure you guys are clear. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. So just one more question for you guys, if you guys have it. One or two more questions. Okay. All right, let's see what we got here. I got, what did you say your average time to complete negotiation was? Well, our average time to safely, when we're talking with a homeowner, we probably tell them 6 months. We've had them more recently. Things have moved along a little better for Wells and actually City within 60 days. But average is probably 120 days comfortably, from start to finish. So, if you implement a lot of the details. When you're working short sales, there's a lot of little intimate details that you want to make sure that you do, and we are going to get into a lot of that. Like I said, I could probably spend the next 2 hours talking about this stuff, but we will get extensively into that stuff at the event in February. So, and Harold, thanks. Harold, thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm glad you guys listened. I hope this was worth your time. You guys sign up for the event right now, and you guys have a great evening. So we'll see you guys, and we'll see you guys next year.